Cops rip up black woman's passport at airport, then realize she's the AG's wife. What if a simple trip home could change everything you thought you knew about justice? The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in Terminal C, casting that familiar airport glow that makes everyone look tired. Passengers shuffled past with rolling suitcases, their conversations mixing into a low murmur that filled the vast space. Maya Richardson adjusted her carry-on bag and checked her phone. Her flight from Chicago had landed right on time, and David would be waiting at home with dinner warming in the oven. After 3 days at the education conference, she was ready for his embrace and their quiet Sunday tradition of coffee on the back porch. She'd made the same walk through customs dozens of times, passport ready, nothing to declare except maybe some conference materials and a small gift for her husband. Maya smiled, thinking about the vintage law book she'd found for David's collection. He'd appreciate the thoughtful surprise. But as she approached the customs checkpoint, something felt different today. The air seemed heavier somehow, charged with an energy she couldn't quite place. "Where are you watching from tonight?" Maya had always believed in working within the system. As a high school principal for 15 years, she'd seen how patience, respect, and following proper procedures could solve almost any problem. She and David had built their life on these principles. He as a prosecutor climbing the ranks with integrity, she molding young minds with firm but caring guidance. Whilst their modest home in Richmond reflected their values, family photos covering the mantel, bookshelves filled with law texts and education journals, a vegetable garden David tended each morning before work. The customs line moved slowly, giving Maya time to observe the officers at their stations. She noticed how some passengers breezed through with barely a glance, while others faced additional questions. Nothing unusual there. She understood the random nature of airport security. When her turn came, she approached Officer Bradley's station with the same calm demeanor she used when handling difficult parent conferences. "Passport and customs form, please." His tone was routine, professional enough. Maya handed over her navy blue passport, the one she'd renewed just 2 years ago for their anniversary trip to Italy. Aunt David had insisted they splurge on that vacation, saying they'd earned it after his promotion to senior prosecutor. Officer Bradley flipped through the pages, his expression shifting from routine to suspicious. "Step aside, ma'am. We need to examine this more closely." His voice had an edge now, and Maya felt her heart rate quicken slightly. She'd done nothing wrong. 3 days in Chicago attending workshops on educational equity, receipts for every meal, conference badge still clipped to her blazer. "Is there a problem? I can show you my conference materials if—" "Ma'am, please step to the secondary inspection area." Another officer, young and stern-faced, had joined them. Maya caught the nameplate. Officer Williams. She gathered her belongings and moved where directed. That familiar principal instinct telling her to remain calm and work through whatever misunderstanding this might be. But as she watched Officer Bradley hold her passport up to the light, turning it this way and that with exaggerated scrutiny, something cold settled in her stomach. This wasn't random. This wasn't routine. The way both officers kept glancing at each other, the slight smirks she caught when they thought she wasn't looking, this felt deliberate. Maya had faced discrimination before, subtle and not so subtle, but always in context where she had colleagues, procedures, witnesses. Here, surrounded by strangers in transit, she felt truly alone for the first time in years. "This document appears to be fraudulent," Officer Bradley announced loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks, not from shame, but from the injustice of it. Heads turned their way, and she saw the mixture of curiosity and judgment in strangers' eyes. "That's impossible. I've used this passport multiple times, including international travel. I can show you the stamps from—" "Ma'am, please don't raise your voice." Officer Williams stepped closer, his hand resting on his radio. "We're going to need to detain you while we verify your identity." Maya's mind raced to her training in de-escalation, to every difficult conversation she'd mediated between angry parents and frustrated teachers. Stay calm, state facts, find common ground. "Gentlemen, I understand you're doing your job. I'm Maya Richardson, principal at Jefferson High School in Richmond. My husband is David Richardson with the State Attorney General's office. And I'm happy to provide additional identification or references." The two officers exchanged another look, and this time Maya caught something else in their expressions, a flicker of uncertainty mixed with what looked like embarrassment. Officer Bradley cleared his throat. "We still need to verify this documentation, ma'am." What happened next would replay in Maya's mind for weeks afterward. Officer Bradley gripped her passport with both hands, and before she could react, tore it cleanly in half. The sound, that crisp, final rip, cut through the ambient airport noise like a slap. Other passengers gasped audibly. A woman behind Maya whispered, "Oh my God." Maya stared at the two pieces of her passport, the document that had carried her across oceans, that represented her citizenship, her freedom to come and go from her own country. And her hands trembled as she reached toward the fragments, then stopped. Every instinct told her to grab for them, to shout, to demand justice right here and now. But 15 years of leadership had taught her that sometimes the most powerful response is dignity in the face of humiliation. "That was my property," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm building inside her chest. "And you've just committed a federal crime. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up." The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Maya could hear her own heartbeat, could smell the stale coffee from the nearby cafe, could feel the weight of every stare from fellow passengers who'd witnessed what just happened. Officer Williams shifted uncomfortably, finally seeming to grasp the gravity of what his partner had done. Ma'am, we're going to need to call our supervisor." His voice had lost its aggressive edge, replaced by something that sounded almost like panic. Maya noticed beads of sweat on his forehead despite the airport's air conditioning. "Yes," Maya said, her principal voice emerging, calm, authoritative, unshakable. "You are going to call your supervisor, and you're going to explain to him why you destroyed the legal identification of a United States citizen without cause or due process." A memory surfaced from her childhood, her grandmother, who'd lived through Jim Crow, teaching her to stand tall in the face of injustice. "Baby girl," Grandma Rose used to say, "they can try to make you small, but you remember who you are. You remember what you're worth." Maya felt her grandmother's strength flowing through her now. She's straightening her spine, steadying her voice. Officer Bradley was frantically trying to piece the passport back together, as if tape might somehow undo what he'd done. "Look, maybe we can work something out here. There's no need to make a big deal about this." "A big deal?" Maya's eyebrows rose slightly, the same expression that could quiet a rowdy classroom in seconds. "Officer, you've just destroyed federal property and violated my civil rights. That's not a big deal to you?" By now, a small crowd had gathered. Maya noticed an elderly gentleman recording with his phone, a young mother pulling her children closer while watching with wide eyes, two business travelers whispering urgently to each other. Airport security was arriving, their radios crackling with urgent communications. "Mrs. Richardson," a new voice cut through the chaos. A woman in a supervisory uniform approached, her face grave. "I'm Sandra Mitchell, Customs Supervisor. I need to speak with you immediately about what happened here." Maya looked at Supervisor Mitchell, then back at the two officers who were now avoiding her gaze entirely. She thought about David, probably wondering why her flight tracker showed she'd landed, but she hadn't called. She thought about her students who looked up to her as an example of how to handle adversity with grace. Have you ever faced something like this? Share your experience in the comments. Supervisor Mitchell led Maya to a private office, her expression a mixture of professional concern and barely contained anger. "Mrs. Richardson, I want to start by saying that what happened to you is completely unacceptable and not representative of our agency's values or procedures." Maya settled into the chair across from Mitchell's desk, her hands folded in her lap. The same posture she'd maintained through countless difficult meetings over the years. "Supervisor Mitchell, I appreciate your concern, but I need you to understand that this wasn't just unprofessional behavior. This was a deliberate act of intimidation. I understand, and I want you to know that we take these allegations extremely seriously." Mitchell pulled out a tablet and began taking notes. "I've already contacted Internal Affairs, and they're sending investigators. Additionally, I've spoken with the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Inspector General. They'll be conducting their own independent review." Through the office window, Maya could see officers Bradley and Williams being escorted to separate rooms by stern-looking officials in suits, The reality of their situation was clearly beginning to sink in. Their casual cruelty had set in motion a series of investigations that would examine every aspect of their conduct. "There's something else you should know," Mitchell continued, her voice gentle but firm. "About 20 minutes ago, we received a call from the Attorney General's office. Your husband was concerned when you didn't answer your phone after landing." Maya felt a flutter of mixed emotions. Relief that David knew where she was, but also worry about how he'd react to what had happened. She knew her husband's protective instincts, his prosecutor's sense of justice. This situation could easily spiral beyond what she wanted to handle personally. "Mrs. Richardson, I want to assure you that we're taking immediate corrective action. Both officers have been suspended pending investigation. We're also reviewing all their previous interactions to identify any patterns of misconduct." Mitchell paused, choosing her words carefully. "Your husband has requested to speak with you, but he's also made it clear that any response will be through proper legal channels." Maya nodded, feeling some of the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. This was how the system was supposed to work. Oversight, accountability, due process. Not perfect, not immediate, but thorough and respectful of everyone's rights. If you've been moved by this journey, subscribe for more heartfelt stories. 3 months later, Maya stood in her kitchen, morning coffee in hand, watching David tend their vegetable garden through the window. The tomatoes were coming in beautifully this year, his patient care showing in every bright red fruit. The official letters had arrived yesterday. Both officers had been terminated, the customs agency had implemented new training protocols, and the Inspector General's report had led to policy changes across multiple airports. But the real change, Maya reflected, wasn't in the official responses or policy reforms. It was in the hundreds of messages she'd received from people who'd heard about what happened. Teachers, parents, travelers who'd faced similar treatment and finally felt heard. The elderly gentleman who'd recorded the incident had become an unexpected ally, Maya attending the oversight hearings and speaking about what he'd witnessed. "You know what I keep thinking about?" Maya had told the investigators during her final interview. "My students, they're watching how we respond to injustice, not just with anger, but with persistence. They're learning that dignity doesn't mean silence, and that justice requires both courage and patience." David came inside, brushing soil from his hands and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "The new passport came in," he said softly, nodding toward the counter where a fresh navy booklet lay waiting. But Maya's eyes went to the frame beside it, a photo from their Italy trip, both of them laughing at something silly, completely at ease in the world. The destroyed passport had been evidence in the investigation, but Maya had kept one small piece, just a corner with part of her photo visible, not as a trophy or a reminder of victimization, but as a symbol of resilience. Sometimes systems fail, sometimes people abuse their power, but sometimes if you speak truth with grace and stand firm in your dignity, justice finds a way through. "Ready for that conference in Seattle next month?" David asked, kissing her temple. Maya picked up the new passport, feeling its crisp pages, its promise of future journeys. "More than ready," she said, and meant it completely. Thank you for joining me on Maya's journey. If this story moved you, please like this video, share your own experiences in the comments below, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Until next time, keep believing in the power of dignity and justice.